All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Want to welcome on a very special guest. This has been a long time in the making, but want to welcome him on anyway. Jason Spears from For the Culture, and also obviously Culture Uncut as well. Jason, welcome onto the show, man. I think we've had you on one time before, but nevertheless, man, glad to have you back on. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Cody. Man, I'll tell you what, it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited to talk ball with you, and yeah, man, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it, man. And you have to say, I appreciate your passion, and just was listening to your comments a little bit on the whole Anthony Richardson situation and everything like that. And I know there's so much we can dive into and so much you can talk about, but I guess I want to kind of start here, Jason. I want to get your thoughts on this because to me, when I kind of look at how the Colts have handled this situation, I think first off, I think they completely botched it. I think they've completely mismanaged it in so many different ways. And I think for me, the thing that is the most frustrating and just the most incompetent about this organization is the lack of transparency the last couple of weeks, right? We've heard all the stuff that Shane Steichen said, and he came out on Wednesday and said all this stuff. And I just have to sit here, Jason, and be like, man, why did the Colts have to wait till 2 weeks plus on a Wednesday for Shane Steichen to finally say some things that, frankly, I think he should have said the moment that Anthony Richardson, or they're even thinking about that, benching him? What are your thoughts just on this whole situation? Because it just feels like how the Colts have handled this, in my view, has been completely backwards.
No question. I mean, absolutely. From the start of this, I mean, it was the tap out, right? And then there was the meet. Nobody said anything to him in the locker room. This team's supposed to have leaders. Nobody said, "Hey, you can't go up there and say I was tired. Say you were hurt. Something. We'll deal with it inside the locker room." Nobody said that. So that's a lack of leadership. Then he goes out there and says it. Then there's a media crap storm that takes over, and then he's benched. Right? Then they don't have a meeting with him until Wednesday or Thursday about the benching. It's just so from the beginning this has been botched. If Shane would have come out initially the Monday after the game, talked to Anthony that Monday morning, and then talked to the media that Monday of the presser after the Texans game when they made that decision and said what he said yesterday, none of what we went through the last 2 weeks would have happened because we would have known. That's why I don't buy it. That's why I don't buy. I don't buy any of this. I don't buy anything they're selling on West 56 right now. I don't buy. I think this is all. I think the tap out and the media storms led to the benching, and then they thought, well, maybe we can. Ballard's thinking, well, maybe I can save my job and we can actually make the playoffs with Flacco based on the fact that Flacco played one good quarter against the 32nd ranked defense in the league, and then he won a game in Tennessee. And I'll remind you, Cody, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Pittsburgh, that was an in-game change. They weren't prepared for Joe Flacco. Tennessee and Jacksonville were both game time decisions for Anthony Richardson, so they had to prepare for both. When the teams that they played knew that they were playing Joe Flacco, including the 28th ranked Minnesota Viking pass defense, they destroyed our offense. We couldn't do anything, and we really didn't do anything for 2 games. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't buy anything that they're selling us. I just think Flacco failed. They weren't going to win with him. They could see it. He looks like he's done. And so they went back to Richardson and said, here's the keys. And now there's no going back. Now they have to play him the rest of the year. That's what I think happened.
That's what I was going to say, and I feel like there's just multiple things where I listened to what Shane Steichen was saying, and I'm like, you're lying. Like that's complete BS right there. Like I think like the thing about saying, oh, the poor play of Flacco had nothing to do with this happening. I'm like, that's that's BS. Like there's no way that's a reality that you're sitting in. Like I don't know how you feel about this, Jason, but I'm like, say Joe Flacco played well, the Colts are 2-0. I don't think he's on the bench right now. I don't think
Oh,
that's the case.
absolutely not. He's starting. And listen, here's another thing I want to mention. So he went from this poorly prepared guy to this complete NFL professional in 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
That makes no sense.
No, that was my other.
Like it
No.
just
And so I'm like, what are you saying by saying that? That's kind of my biggest thing is like, are you saying that either. I don't really know how can he possibly become a better pro in 2 weeks? I don't
It's
understand that.
it's
Really
it's
that bad.
it's really ridiculous. And one other thing about this whole thing, it goes back, and I've been harping on this on my show a lot. It goes back to a lack of leadership from the offensive staff, right? All year long. If he's got bad practice habits, bad film habits, bad habits in general off the field, you nip that in the bud right away. This is supposed to be taken care of in the off season. You teach him how to prepare. You teach him how to watch film. You teach him when to be in. If he's not in enough, you tell him, "Hey, you need to be in here. This is your job now. This isn't college." That should have been nipped in the bud. So they let it go all the way to the Houston game, and then suddenly they have an
Hmm.
epiphany that, oh, he's not preparing well enough. Well, that's an indictment on you for not talking to this kid and telling him what and demanding him or being more demanding of him in the early stages of this season. You don't get from 1 to 100 in one day. You know what I mean? You don't go from starting and being the franchise quarterback to being a poor professional in one day. That you have to teach this kid. And people forget he's 22 years old. Of course he's immature. He doesn't know how to be a pro. He's 22. I was nuts at 22. I couldn't have been a franchise quarterback. You would have had to teach me everything. And they haven't done that. And to me, that is an indictment on Steichen as a head coach. He may be a great offensive coordinator, although their results this year have been less than what I think you would desire. But he has certainly, to me, shown the lack of leadership that you should want from a head coach.
Yeah. Do you think this was more of a Steichen? I know Steichen said he made the decision, but do you think this was more of a Steichen move and a Steichen decision initially? Or do you think there's a little bit of foul play potentially with Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay, or maybe a combination of them?
I definitely think Chris Ballard's involved. Jim Irsay, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think had a lot to do with this situation. I think it was much more Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, and probably the frustration of the kid not progressing. But we'll get into the X's and O's, I'm sure, at some point. But to me, Steichen this entire year has not put him in a position to succeed, or the offense, because most of the games were pass heavy as opposed to run heavy. And to me, coming into the season, I thought the identity would be with your best player, 28, and your quarterback's young legs and an offensive line up front that's a strength of the team. Your identity is going to be running the ball. But to me, from the beginning, they've called the wrong plays. It's been the wrong style, and they've tried to do the wrong things with a guy that does have a lot of attributes. They just haven't played into him. And going back to your question, I think it was the frustration from both Steichen and Ballard, and then the tap out was the cherry on top. It was all the reason they needed to bench him.
Well, yeah, like you said, they haven't done him a whole lot of favors, right? I mean, I was baffled by the first half game plan in the last game he started against
Yeah.
the Houston Texans because Jonathan Taylor was averaging like 5 yards a carry, and you're making him throw the ball against a defense that has some guys back there, and your receivers are dropping passes, your offensive line can't protect, but it's all Anthony Richardson's fault. And Jason, you know this. I'm sure you hear this all the time. If you even begin to try to defend Anthony Richardson, you have people saying, "Oh my gosh, can't you just admit this guy sucks?" and blah blah blah. But I guarantee you, a lot of those people, if Joe Flacco's in a similar situation, they wouldn't afford him the same exact things that they are not affording Anthony Richardson.
I completely agree. And here's the thing I always say on my show is that I'm not saying Anthony Richardson is going to be the guy. I'm not saying he's going to be, an NFL top 5 quarterback. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying, though, is when you take a guy 4th overall, you have to give him a chance to fail, a chance to succeed either way. You have to. The bottom line is you have to play him. He's got to be out there. The reps are what matters. People are like, well, he needs to sit and watch. No, he really doesn't, because he did that all of last year, and it really didn't help. So let's just stop with the sit and watch garbage. What needs to happen is somebody needs to take him under their wing and teach him how to be a pro, and that should have happened either via a teammate or via the coach, and it didn't happen. For me, Anthony Richardson has a lot of upside, but when he's so raw and so young, and everyone knew this coming into the league, you have to play to his strengths. And I just don't feel like he's been afforded the opportunity to really succeed like he did last year. If you remember last year, we're down 23-0 in the Rams game. He leads us all the way back in the second half, unfortunately, to tie the game. Unfortunately, the defense gives up the game-winning touchdown, of course. But Then you look at the Titan game when he got hurt. He was balling. He was totally. I mean, he was a completely different player last year because we were calling better plays for him. We were putting him in a place to succeed. Whereas this year, I just feel like they put him behind the eight ball almost all the time this season, depending on him to throw the ball more than run it. And I don't know about you, Cody, but for me, this offensive identity should be running behind those five guys up front with one of the best running backs in the game. It's that simple for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's kind of funny, like the last couple games, with Flacco, the defense has been balling. But where was that in Jacksonville? Where was that in so many other games that Richardson's been in? And like the defense, and so hopefully the defense continues that trend and maybe we'll start to see some games. But it's just so funny to me, Jason, because they preached all the time about how Flacco gives us the best chance to win. And then you go out and have two of your worst offensive performances all season. And, with Anthony Richardson, at least, even though, despite the fact that we can admit he has plenty of flaws, you were still in every single game up until that Vikings game when Joe Flacco basically handed the game away to Minnesota. So, I mean, yeah, as bad as it's been in terms of passing the ball at times, which we're not shocked by that in certain ways, it just does feel like you're right. It's been 10 games. Richardson has definitely not been having his strengths being utilized like he did last year. And this team really hasn't backed him at all in terms of complementary football as well.
Oh no, they're that. I mean, that is. You said that so well. Complementary football is just offensively is just non-existent. Um, it's been bad all year. They get in the red zone. It's field goal time. And we'll get into the. I'm sure we'll get into the field goal kicker. Jeez, man, what a fun
Yeah.
fun guy that is. As far as not getting much out of him, but. Yeah, the offense, man, it's just been kind of stagnant all year, and it's very difficult to be efficient offensively when you have no identity or you're trying to force feed a passing identity on a guy that's not prepared to be that guy yet. He's just simply not ready to throw the ball 35 times a game or 30 times a game. He's just not that guy. He's a guy that you run the ball with, you pull the safety up, then you take shots. That's what they should be doing. I hope that's what they do this week in New York. But yeah, man, Anthony's he's a work in progress. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with him. He might end up being a bust, but you got a lottery ticket with him because he's got so much upside, and by sitting him, you set that timeline back, in my opinion, and putting him through all this nonsense, this circus that was basically created by our own organization. You turned it into a circus, so hopefully he can put all that behind him. I do see a lot of really, really, impressive things about him. But people have to remember he's 22 years old. I think most of the quarterbacks coming out in this year's draft, Cody, are actually older than AR5 is. So people need to be patient and understand this is going to be a work in progress. This is not Andrew Luck. He's not a generational talent. He's got certain generational traits, but he's not a generational talent in terms of passing and all that stuff that you got from Andrew Luck or even Peyton Manning. He's not that guy. He's young, he's inexperienced, and he just needs to have reps.
Yeah, and to go to that inexperienced route real quick, I mean, you talk about obviously the age, but I mean, look at all the quarterbacks that even came out this year. I mean, every single one had multiple years of playing in an offensive system, playing in more of a pro style offense, certainly than Florida was. And, why are we surprised that Anthony Richardson's struggling when he literally never was taught to play the quarterback position in college? Like, I'm not shocked. I don't know why people are shocked that he's learning. He has to learn this year in his first really full season as a quarterback. I don't know why everybody was so shocked that he looked the way he did. Frankly, I was not, Jason. I don't know how you felt about it, but I wasn't shocked by the fact that he has had struggles, especially when you're trying to turn him into a pocket passer, which we know is not playing to his strengths back to what we were talking about.
No, no question. And listen, when we drafted him, I knew it was going to be. And I'm not a in my life. I'm super impatient. I'm not a very patient person. I'll be honest and upfront about that. But I knew when we drafted him, this was going to take some time. I mean, because he was just so raw. And like you said, he played in a completely different style at Florida, offensive Florida, and it was just going to take time. It was going to take just him getting on the field and playing the game, learning what to do, what not to do, how to prepare, how not to prepare. I mean, it was going to be sink or swim with him, and it was going to take some time. And I just think a lot of people saw thought saw what he could be and thought that's what we were going to get right off the rip, and that's just simply not common sense and it's not logical. You're going to have to go through a non-linear progression with him. It's going to be ups and downs, and of course it's frustrating. I got frustrated with him in the Houston game. I got frustrated with the receivers dropping passes straight to him. I get frustrated too, but you have to understand the big picture. The future is this kid. And if it's not this kid, we'll be picking in the top 5, and that'll be our future. But the future for sure, 100%, was not Joe Flacco.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I think you said it, in the pre-draft process when we were kind of talking about quarterbacks. Like, this is a kid that could potentially either make you look like a genius or get you fired. I remember
Right.
that direct quote will always stick in my mind when it comes to Anthony Richardson, because you're right. I mean, the talent's undeniable, but you have to admit the floor is also, it's the big risk. He was the biggest risk coming out of that draft. I mean, no doubt. So it's going to be interesting to see, man, just moving forward. How can he come back from this? What has he learned? As they say, he's learned so much in 2 weeks, but really, like, what's it going to look like in those 2 weeks that he's had to sit? And hopefully he got his mindset right and he can move forward doing that and being a better quarterback moving forward. But again, like you said, it's going to take time. And I almost think, like, Jason, this team was let's be frank, like, nobody expected this team to win 9 games a year ago. I think this team majorly overachieved. And so the expectations were, like you said, from the glimpses we saw of Anthony Richardson last year, the Rams game, the Titans game, just to name a few, so many people, I remember seeing this, I'm sure you did too, people were saying Anthony Richardson's going to be the MVP this year, or he's going to be in that conversation. And I
Yeah.
was like, guys, calm down. Like, I want to see this kid actually be a good quarterback for multiple games, even a full game. Like, he had some moments, but I want to see him do it like full on. So I think the fans' expectations were way too sky high. And
Yeah.
maybe that's honestly why we saw, and I know we both have issues with Ballard, but maybe that's why we saw the Colts kind of not do a whole lot outside of their own building.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. The expectations for this team from a lot of people, not me, I thought they would probably win between 7 and 8 games because I just thought the defense would be a lot worse than it's turned out to be, honestly. But yeah, man, the expectations were just way too high. I saw people picking this team to win 11 and 12 games, and I'm looking at the schedule, and it's just like, I don't see. I can't see this. Like even in the best case scenario with Anthony Richardson, winning 12 games in this league is not easy. The Colts haven't done that since when? 2000 and maybe 2009, maybe. I mean it's hard to
Wow.
win 12. It's hard to win 12 games. So I was seeing people pick 11 and 12 wins, and with a young quarterback. And again, their thought was, well, we won 9 with Gardner. We should be able to win, this much with AR. But that transitive property doesn't work that way with football. It just doesn't. You're playing a tougher schedule. Some teams that you thought were going to be bad or good, like the Vikings. So it just doesn't work that way. And I completely agree with you. I thought the expectations for the team in general and AR specifically were way too high coming into the season. I think it put a lot of undue pressure on not only the team but Anthony and specifically because I mean that's a lot for a young quarterback to shoulder.
Absolutely. One final thing I want to kind of talk about, because you mentioned it earlier, I want to kind of circle back to it real quick. Mentioning this whole term, and I think this is the term the Colts use, but they rarely practice this term accountability. I mean, we've heard it for how many years? The Colts have said accountability. Well, like you said, you have a $20+ million kicker, can't make a 50-yard field goal, still out there. You have a center who's calling out your quarterback, but he's playing like crap. That's just naming a few guys.
Right.
And this team preaches this word called accountability, but they don't actually enforce it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the thing I find funny about Ryan Kelly is we drafted him in 2016, and other than what 2018 and 2020, the standard of this organization has been mediocrity. I mean, that's just keeping it 100. It's not been there's not like this high standard of winning here. We've gone to the playoffs since 2014 two times. We won one game. So there is there. Let's just throw that word. There is no standard here unless you're talking about being mediocre. And the accountability is the selective accountability. It's ridiculous. And it goes back to me saying this team is a rudderless ship. They can talk about leaders. They have guys on the team that are quote unquote leaders. They talk a lot. Zaire Franklin, God love him. He went to Syracuse. I'm an Orange guy. I love him, but he talks a lot. It's about action. You have to talk to your teammates. You have to correct your teammates when they make a mistake. There is none of that, in my opinion. There is not enough of that in this organization. I don't think there's the selective accountability thing is ridiculous. And they talk about process and all this other stuff. It's all word salad to me. All word salad and talk. And I'm about action. And I haven't seen any. And it's been the same way for since 2021. It's been kind of a train wreck. And I'm just sick of it. I just go do it. Don't talk about it. Just go do it.
So, what do you think needs to change then to stop this standard of mediocrity? I think I know your answer, but kind of curious if you're sitting there, your Jim will say, "What do you do? What do you do to get that back?" I mean, because it's been, like you said, it's been a train wreck for the last decade or so. Maybe not quite a decade, but what I mean, what do you do at this point if you're Jim Irsay?
People aren't going to want to hear this because we just did this tried to do it in 2022. But I'm firing Chris Ballard and I'm doing an extensive GM search. I bring in the GM. If he wants to keep Steichen, fine. If he doesn't, we bring in a new staff and start over. Because what we've been doing with Chris Ballard here is not working, and we're just continuing to do it. I want somebody that's going to come in here and address the lack of playmakers on defense. Somebody that's going to set a level of accountability, not just talk about it, but actually hold players to it. I want a physical team, a team that plays to its strengths. I'm so sick of losing, Cody. I'm so tired of it. And I'm so tired of the word salad we get from our head coaches, really, if you go back to Frank Reich and all that, the cliches and all that. And I'm tired of our GM hiding. He should be upfront addressing this. This is his mess. It's been his mess this entire time since 2017. And he's in hiding. So yes, I want a better leader at GM. I want a guy that's willing to go out there and get somebody from another team and bring him in here to supplement what we already have. We need playmakers on defense. We have DeForest, who's a great player, but it's very difficult to be a playmaker at the 3 tech. And then Kenny Moore, maybe. But outside of that, we have no real difference makers on that side of the ball. Latu could turn into that, but we just need to have a different approach. This approach has not worked.
I just feel like with Chris Ballard, I don't know if it's an ego thing, if it's a pride thing, what it is with him, but it almost seems like going back to the standard, it's like he's just content to be just good enough, but not to be a true contender. And I think just that blind faith, honestly, Jason, in his own guys has been his downfall in a lot of ways. I mean, we talk all the time about the quarterback position, but it just seems like there's this outright refusal to change from Chris Ballard. And it's like he almost is, and I think he's pretty much said it at this point, like, if it gets me fired, it gets me fired.
Yeah, well, he literally said
here that. We are again.
Yeah.
He literally said that. Here we are again, 10 weeks in. You have a losing record again. So I don't know what else it's going to take Jim Irsay to see that this guy's not the guy. Because, Jim lived through, some of the greatest years in Indianapolis Colts history. So it's just crazy to me that Ballard has survived this long with a continual excuse. It's like you can excuse anything away. And it feels like Chris Ballard just continues to excuse everything away, and Jim Irsay keeps falling for it. I just don't understand. I still am shocked that he survived 2022, to be honest with you.
100%.
That was a train.
Yeah.
And here we are again.
He should have been gone after 2022, no question. It should have been a full teardown right then and there. The biggest problem with Ballard is quite simple. He is stuck in his ways. This is an adapt or die league. Okay, if you don't adapt, you're going to die. We've been dying for 4 or 5 years now because he will not adapt his style, his thinking, his way of thinking, and he will not change it. I don't know if it's ego, stubbornness, whatever it is, but enough of it. I'm tired of it. It's not going to change. This is who he is. He showed us who he is. And when somebody shows you who they are, and it's a failure, then you show them the door. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, no doubt. like you said, you got to adapt or die, and it just seems like Chris Ballard just will refuse to do that no matter what happens, even if he gets fired. And it's just that's so bizarre to hear a GM say that. It's like because wouldn't you want to do anything possible to keep your job? But apparently not. So, but Jason, one last thing I want to kind of talk about before I let you go. I do appreciate your time, by the way.
I
This is
love being
awesome, and
on, man.
guys, be
Love
sure to
being
go
on.
check. Yeah, I love just talking ball, man, and just having some candid conversations. But guys, be sure to go check out Jason's channel. Definitely, Jason, want to get you to 1,000. I know you've put in a lot of hard work and been through a lot, but you're still here, and I really do appreciate your time. But yeah, one last thing I want to leave you with, Jason, is moving forward, you still have some games. You have Anthony Richardson as your starter. That was kind of the biggest question mark was, are you really going to roll with Joe Flacco? But here we are. Anthony Richardson's your guy. According to Shane, he's going to be the guy moving forward the rest of the season. So for you, what would you like to see the rest of the way for this Colts team? And beyond the wins, beyond anything like that, what do you think would make this season at least sort of salvageable in your mind for this Colts team moving forward into 2025?
Well, obviously, first of all, it's AR's progression. I want to see some progression in the last part of this season. Stay healthy. I want to see Shane Steichen show that he can adapt his play calling to Anthony Richardson again, call plays like he did last year. Continue to lean on the running game to set up the pass. I want to see AD Mitchell continue to develop. I just want to see our young players develop. I want to see Bortolini keep playing well. I want to see Concalves. I don't know how you say it. I always mess up his last name, but the tackle we drafted out of Pittsburgh. I want to see him continue to improve. I just want to see an identity on offense, a path to, so we can see the finish line. Like, obviously, it's a long way away with AR. The finish line is a long way away, okay? But I want to see some progression and know that the path that we're on is the right one and that Shane can adapt. And he saw that he was wrong in the way he was calling games and finish the season strong. I think we could very easily go 4-2. I think Denver is going to be a tough game to win. They're very good defensively, and I think obviously Detroit. To me, I don't know about you, Cody, but I think they're very, very good, and I think they could easily be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl and could easily win it because they're very, very good on both sides of the ball. But back to the Colts, I just want to see everybody get better. I want to see this team come together instead of pull apart. I want to see Latu continue to do what he's been doing. I want to see the linebackers improve their coverage. They've been a little bit better recently. I think Zaire's had a couple picks, and EJ had one last week. And I want to see Nick Cross continue to grow because I think Nick Cross is going to be one of these guys that's going to be a pillar of our defense going forward. And obviously, Jalen Jones, Sam Womack, Kenny Moore, those guys continue, especially the first two that I mentioned, continue to get better and grow. Sam Womack's had a couple tough weeks, but I think he's the type of guy that you want in your DB room because he can play pretty much everywhere, and he's a good tackler, and he seems to be a really good player, at least above average to me. So I just want to see the team kind of grow from all of this nonsense and put their best foot forward going down the stretch of this season. When hopefully they'll win more than they lose, but really it's about the development of these young players going forward. And if that can happen, especially with the quarterback, then I'll feel good about going into next year, especially if Shane starts calling games to his strengths. And if he does that and AR can stay healthy, then that's something you can build on going into the offseason and going into next year. Because we haven't had that in a long time with the young quarterback, where he's really played well and finished the season strong, and then gone into the next season with renewed vigor and hope that this team can actually go somewhere. Because Cody, I know you know this, but this is a trash division. I mean, Tennessee has no quarterback. Jacksonville's quarterback is underachieved. I think CJ's taken a step back mainly because their O line has been garbage. That's the team to beat, obviously. But this is not a great division. We should not be. What are we? What's our record in the division? 1-3. I mean, we should not be one
I
and
think
three in
so.
this. Yeah, we should not be 1-3 in this division. We need to win those last two division games and really kind of establish an identity, And I think, like I've mentioned a couple times previous to this, the identity of this offense should be running the ball and throwing off of that. That's the way it should be called because the best players are 28, and we've got a really solid offensive line that can run block their tail off, especially Quentin. So I just want to see that. I want to see some more creativity in the run game. It's been very vanilla, a lot of dives, in the B gap. I want to see them get creative, maybe some outside zone, inside zone, mix it up a little bit, not just the same thing repetitively. and just see progress. That's really, I mean, that's the bare minimum. We're not asking for a lot here. We're not asking for the playoffs. We're not asking for anything other than progress. And I think that's a fair thing. I think that's fair to everybody. And that's what I want to see going down the stretch. Just a lot of progress from our young players.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I really appreciate you coming on, making the time, man. It's always fun, and we're definitely going to have to do it again. And man, here's to hoping that that stuff happens because I can't go into another off season with questions at quarterback and GM and all that stuff. I mean, there's so much that this team has to figure out this off season. A lot of contracts that they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with, and obviously a GM who may or may not be here, and potentially head coach and coaching staff as well. But yeah, man, it's going to be fun, and I'm just excited to see how this season progresses, especially now that AR5 is actually in the lineup again. And it's I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, but it certainly has to be better than the last 2 weeks.
No question, man. I'm excited. I'm pumped. Like I was really after the Buffalo game, I was depressed because I was like, we're gonna have to sit through the whole season of this. And when I got the news that AR was starting again, I was so happy because now we have I have like a renewed interest in watching because this is our future. I really believe he's our future. And the excitement's back. I can't wait to watch him this weekend in New York. Hopefully, we can get a win because they're not very good. And I would love to see AR, have a really strong game and shut up a lot of these people that wanted to see Flacco out there and show that he was the guy all along. And I'm just really excited. Like you said, man, it's a lot more fun to have something to look forward to than to have Joe Flacco. And no, this is no disrespect to Joe Flacco, but he's almost 40 years old. It's just there was nothing to look forward to with that. We knew it wasn't going to work. At least I did. I'm sure most people did, but I'm just excited, like you said, to see Five go back out there. Hopefully, with a renewed enthusiasm to play. And I'm not expecting miracles. I don't think he's going to suddenly become a 70% passer, but I want to see him have fun, have the team have fun, and go make plays and get a win, man. That's what this is all about: having fun, making plays and getting wins. And hopefully, we can do that Sunday.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, really appreciate your time, man. Everybody go check out his channel. Where are you at right now, man? I know you're getting closer to 1,000 subs. Are you? Where are you at? I haven't checked today.
I'm not very close. I'm about at 630. So I got a long way to go to 1,000. Culture Uncut on YouTube is where I'm at, and I'm also on Spotify. Culture Uncut. I'm close to 10,000 on Twitter, or X or whatever, but not nearly as close to 1,000 on YouTube. But I'll get there. I'll keep working, and we'll get there. But I really do appreciate you having me on your platform, Cody, because you have a lot of listeners, a lot of followers, and it really helps me out, man. So thank you so much for your time and having me on because I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Yeah, looking forward to more conversations like this. It's always good to talk to somebody who gets it. So, well, guys, that'll do it for this one. Again, thank you to Jason for hopping on. Be sure to go check out his channel. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.